Welcome back, dear viewers, and you're still watching the Breakfast Show. And in this segment of our program, we will talk about the Egyptian-French relations with a special focus on the history of cultural relations between the two countries in light of President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi's current visit to France. And we are joined now today by Dr. Ahmed Faraag. He is a journalist. Good morning.
Good morning, ma'am.
So, sir, at the beginning, we'd like you to tell us more about the history of cultural relations between Egypt and France.
Well, first of all, I would like to thank the teamwork of Nile TV channel for hosting me in this distinguished episode about the French-Egyptian relations in terms of the cultural cooperations and relations. I would like to mention the fact that the Egyptian-French relations get back to the era of the Muhammad Ali Pasha, who decided to send scientific missions to France. So the Egyptian students can study and benefit from the advanced science in Paris, and the great thinker and translator Rafa al-Tahtawi was commissioned to supervise the first scientific mission to Paris. And when they lived in France, of course, they enjoyed a great deal of knowledge and scientific research, and this influenced the cultural life in Egypt after their return. For example, Rafa al-Tahtawi advised Muhammad Ali Pasha to create the first language and translation school in Egypt, which is Al-Alsun School, and mainly focusing on rendering and translating the Western science into Arabic, and actually they made a great success in this sphere. Another important point is the fact that the den of Arabic literature, Dr. Taha Hussein, was influenced a lot by the French culture and the French life. And when he
was this shown in his writings?
Of course. When, for example, when Dr. Taha Hussein wrote his famous novel The Days or Al-Ayyam, he accounted for the life in Paris and how the French people acted and how they
affected him.
Of course, yeah, he was affected a lot, and he compared between the Egyptian daily life and the French daily life. And of course, he advised through his writings to benefit from the advancements he he saw in many fields in Paris.
Yes. Also, we can't ignore that the one who discovered Rashid Stone was a French, was one of the French, one of people coming from the French mission who deciphers.
This was during the French
Stone.
campaign.
That
yes.
was long ago, maybe.
Before Muhammad Ali Pasha, actually.
If we start talking about historical relations, so it went beyond Muhammad Ali Pasha, of course.
Yeah, of course. It is very old, yeah.
So they participated in shaping French culture because Rashid Stone tell us many things about the life of the pharaohs, of Egyptian pharaohs, right?
Yeah, of course, yeah. And this can be seen nowadays in the interest of the French scientists in pharaonic civilization and the pharaonic monuments. That's why, for example, they established so many institutes in France studying Egyptology.
Yes.
And actually the science of Egyptology was introduced initially by the French people. So they introduced the Egyptian heritage, Egyptian civilization, and the Egyptian culture to the whole of the world, actually.
And also we can see that many Egyptian exhibitions take place in Paris that show the greatness of Egypt's monuments and history, like that of Tutankhamun, the exhibition of Tutankhamun that was taking place in Paris maybe last year. And many Egyptian monuments tour many countries, not only France, but France on the top of them.
Of course, the Egyptian Culture Bureau in Paris plays a major role in this regard. Actually, it holds many events that introduce the Egyptian culture, the Egyptian civilization, and the Egyptian life to the French people and those who are interested in the Egyptian civilization. For example, film screenings, the operas, and the culture seminars, symposiums, and so on.
So we can't ignore that the role of cultural centers in introducing the Egyptian culture to France. So what are other activities introduced by the Egyptian culture centers in France?
Actually, the culture centers related to Egypt in France perform other activities, functions, like for example linking the Egyptian community in Paris to their homeland.
Yes.
By organizing Arabic language courses, for example, to those who are interested, and even to the non-native speakers of Arabic who are interested in studying the Arabic language as a foreign language. Also, they attempt to explain the latest developments in Egypt in terms of politics, economy, social life. So the new generations, I mean the migrants, the Egyptian immigrants in France, be acquainted by the latest developments in their homeland. So the degree of their national awareness would be stronger
Yeah.
and they would have a strong background about what's going on in their homeland here in Egypt.
So also there is a cooperation, strong cooperation between Egypt and France on educational field, as well as we have many French schools and French missionary schools long ago opened here in Egypt and still operating, and they are still operating till now. In addition to French universities, many fields of educational cooperation. So how do you see this? It's part, of course, of cultural cooperation.
Yeah, of course. Let me indicate that one of the functions of the Egyptian Culture Bureau in Paris is organizing and facilitating the scientific scholarships provided to the Egyptian students.
Yes.
So it plays a major role in this respect. Every year, the Egyptian researchers and Egyptian students who are interested in completing their postgraduate studies in France, by the way, communicate with the Culture Bureau to see if they are qualified to such scholarships. And actually the Culture Office support them in terms of the administrative procedures and the funding or the financing such scholarships.
Yes, so we were talking before this interesting interview about the year 2019, and that it was declared the year of cultural cooperation, Egyptian-French cultural cooperation. So how do you see this move? To what extent it reflects the depth of relations between the two countries?
Of course, when the 2019 was declared the year of the culture between Cairo and Paris, it reflects how the Egyptian and French relations go on. If we remember the events related to such year, we find that there were opera shows held here in Cairo, provided by the culture officials in both Egypt and France. And actually in Paris during 2019 there were lots of cultural activities in the Egyptian Cultural Bureau there, reflecting the specificity of Egyptian culture and its diversification, actually.
So also, sir, we can't ignore the fact that the French people are strongly passionate about Egyptian civilization, and that there is a big pavilion in Louvre museum that houses Egyptian artifacts. So how do you see this?
Not only the pavilion in Louvre museum, but I would like to state the fact that during the rule of Muhammad Ali Pasha, he granted or he gifted the French people an obelisk from Luxor, and it stands there, I think, at the Concord Square, I think, in Paris. So the French people are very, very interested in the Egyptian culture and the Egyptian civilization because they see that Egypt represents the diversity of culture over time. The Egyptian heritage stems from several civilizations, from Pharaonic, Coptic, Islamic, and this diversity can't be found in any other places in the world.
Also, the French people, the French archaeology laboratories in Egypt play a significant role, and they are participating in the archaeology sector here in Egypt. This is a reflection of their passion about the Egyptian civilization and how they are fond about Egypt and its civilization and the science of Egyptology in general. So how do you see this?
Of course, the French scientists supported their Egyptian counterparts in even in the recent discoveries in terms of many pharaonic monuments, as we saw in several events. And this reflects their keenness on helping Egypt to introduce its civilization and its culture to the world, actually.
Yes. So what further steps should be taken to boost the cultural relations with France?
In my point of view, and actually the Ministry of Education here in Egypt decided to, once upon a time in the governmental schools, we studied French during the secondary school only. But I think nowadays the officials at the Ministry of Education decided to introduce French courses at the primary and prep and higher schools, actually. This would deepen the cultural relations with France and would contribute to enhancing the intellectual atmosphere in Egypt, because as we know, the French language is always ascribed to philosophy, literature, arts, law, and so on. So this would benefit the Egyptian students a lot in their further or higher studies
also,
later.
French tourists are so interested in coming to Egypt and visiting its museums and especially cultural places like the Grand Egyptian Museum, which is expected to be opening
the
soon.
temples in Luxor.
Yes, they are waiting to come and see this great achievement done by Egypt, and other places like Luxor and Aswan. So it is well known that the French tourists are interested in cultural tourism here in Egypt. So how do you see this?
Actually, the officials at the Ministry of Culture and the Ministry of, for example, Tourism and Archaeology should pay attention to how to attract
Tourists.
more French visitors and French tourists to come to Egypt, because they are already interested in the Egyptian life and the Egyptian culture. So in this regard, the Culture Bureau in Paris can hold seminars about the touristic places in Egypt, with focus on especially on Luxor and Aswan, so they can benefit from the eagerness of the French people to visit Egypt and see the pharaonic monuments everywhere. And of course, this would be beneficial for the economic development and generating lots of hard currency for the country.
Also, the Grand Egyptian Museum is expected to be inaugurated soon, and it hosts many artifacts and monuments for Egypt's civilizations and history. And it is expected, of course, to attract visitors from all over the world, and especially French tourists and visitors who are interested in this kind of tourism, right?
Yes, of course, because the French people saw some Egyptian monuments in their country, like
Tutankhamun.
Tutankhamun, and in the Louvre and the obelisk in Concord Square. Yes. So, of course, they would be interested to come to the homeland of such monuments to enjoy and to be acquainted more about the pharaonic life.
Yes. Finally, I'd like to thank Dr. Ahmed Faraag, a journalist and researcher. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
And dear viewers, short break, and we'll be back with our second segment, so stay tuned.